Hello lovelies, welcome to Jo's Kitchen Capers. Helps if I look in the camera when we begin. Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. We're about to make a beautiful raspberry and chocolate brownie. I thought we would have a bit of an Easter theme running today because Easter's going to be here before we know it. So give me a shout out if you're on here live. I'm just going to put the chat on so I can see if anyone's on here. And let's make a start. Now, this recipe isn't for the faint-hearted. It has evolved over the years. I made it years ago, back in the late 90s. I started making it in the restaurant. And it has changed over the years. Today we've got a gluten-free version. But I'm just telling you, it's still got dairy, it's still got sugar. So Easter's such a hard time to avoid sugar, isn't it? Let me start. We're just going to start and preheat our oven to 175 degrees Celsius. So while that's going, preheating, I'm going to be using my Thermomix today, but you can just as easily do this with a mixer, something like a Kenwood or a food processor, or you can do it by hand with a bowl and a whisk. It's pretty simple ingredients. Sorry about that. I've pre-lined a baking dish or a tin. You can use a slice tin if that's what you've got. I'm just using what I've got. Pre-lined that with some baking paper, so we'll pop that aside. And to start with, we're going to get a small saucepan and add our chocolate and our butter. So I have pre-weighed 150 grams of dark chocolate. I'm using beautiful New Zealand Whittaker's chocolate, which I love. We've talked about it before on here. So that's going into the pot, and I've also got going in 150 grams of our butter. So I'm just going to reweigh that and double check that is what I have here. So 150 grams we should have, yes indeed, that's what it is. So that's going into our saucepan as well. And this is just going to go on a very low heat. All we're doing is melting that chocolate in the butter. What the butter does is that melts first, so it stops the chocolate from catching. You can just give that a little bit of a stir around. And that is going to be left to do its thing while we prepare these other ingredients. So as I said, I'm using my Thermomix today. You can easily use, as I said, those other food processors or simply a bowl. Okay, so what we've got going into this, I'm going to use my whisk. So if you're using a different machine, you can put your whisk attachment on because we're going to thicken the butter and the sugar before we add it. Our other ingredients that we've got here, we're adding 3 eggs. I've got half a cup of, I've quickly made a caster sugar out of some raw organic sugar that I've got in the Thermomix, and that's just been putting it in speed 10 for about 3 seconds. I just want it a bit finer so it doesn't give that grainy sort of texture. And I always like to add, when I'm doing a brownie, I like to add a brown sugar. So this is a raspberries sugar, which has got that molassesy, really rich flavour. So let's start by popping our eggs in. Nice clean hands as always. 3 eggs are going in. I've placed that whisk attachment in there. Put that aside, just wash my hands quickly. And into that goes our sugars. Now, as I say, this recipe has changed over the years. When I first started making it, it was just wheat flour and butter. I've done it with cacao butter instead of the butter. I've done it with coconut flour instead of the wheat flour. So we're going to start off with this. Let's just get out of those scales, go home. I'm going to start that. We're using the whisk, so you never want to go, if you're using a Thermomix, you never want to go over speed 4. But I'm going to start it on about 30 seconds. Noisy for a moment, excuse that noise. Speed 4. And what that is going to do is it's just going to give us that ribbony texture. It's going to almost emulsify that sugar and the egg together and give us a beautiful, fluffy, creamy mixture that we're adding our other ingredients to. Let us check our chocolate and our butter. That's just coming together nicely. Let me show you that. You can see it's starting to come together, but it's still quite liquidy. So that is going to go on. I'm going to put it on for a minute, but we may not need as long as that. And what you'll hear when you're using a Thermomix is you get used to that noise that it's making. You can almost hear it thickening up. And you'll hear the motor changing as it goes through. So our butter and our chocolate is melting nicely. Still a little bit of butter there, but it means that that chocolate isn't going to catch. That back on, I might just increase that a little bit. Now what we're going to add into this mixture, I'm using buckwheat flour today. Don't be tricked into thinking that buckwheat is wheat. It's not. It's a gluten-free flour. And why I've chosen to add this is it's got a bit of a nutty and earthy flavour to it. So that is what we're going to add. And we're also adding into this mix some cacao powder. Let's check out our lovely, and that you can see it is thickening up a little bit. And what's happened is because I have used that caster sugar, that raw caster sugar that I've made, I can't see, sometimes you can still see that the sugar hasn't broken down, and we don't want that granular sort of texture. This is a really simple brownie. It all comes together beautifully, and it's a great addition to an Easter lunch or brunch or afternoon tea. It's a great gift to give people. And that you can see now, all our butter has melted. It's a beautiful consistency, and that is just going to sit there aside while we do all the other things. Check that I've turned that off. Our mixture here has thickened up a little, and all we now need to do is add these other ingredients. Our chocolate can go in, as simple as that, just pour it straight in. Make sure you get all the bits from it. I had a spatula somewhere, here it is. So get all that great chocolate in, we don't want to waste any. I have cut the sugar quantity down in it before. You can use whatever sugar you have, is fine. Now into this also we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla essence, well measured. Then our flour goes in, our buckwheat flour, and our cacao butter. Our cacao powder. Now, I've put on there to sift it because I'm using the whisk attachment today. I'm not worrying about sifting it. That's going to do its thing with the Thermomix. And I'm just going to put the motor on reverse, round to speed 2 just to incorporate it. You can turn it up as it goes. We really just want to be folding that in. We don't want to be mixing it too much. Let me get my pre-lined dish we've got here. And we didn't want to knock all the air out of that. So let me just show you that mixture. Look how rich that is. It's stunning, hey? Smells delicious. Just a quick tap to get rid of some of that batter so we're not wasting too much. And then I like to, whether it's in a bowl with a whisk, in your food processor, just go around and make sure you've incorporated all that dry mixture. Oh, hi Debbie, how are you? Nice to see you here. I was just doing Kijong with you earlier. And I had to leave class early, which was a bit sad. So here we go. Here is that beautiful brownie. Look at that. Going in. Gosh, I wish we had smell cam because it is smelling fantastic. Now also, for all you guys who have got a Thermomix out there, and I know there are a couple, a trick is when you're doing it, just so you don't waste any of that batter, put your lid back on. I've already got it on reverse and I throw it round to speed 7. That just throws that batter up against the edge of the bowl and we're not wasting any. So here we go. Can you see that? It's just throwing it around a bit, easier to scrape off. It's nice and light and fluffy. Oh gosh, if you guys weren't here, I might lick the bowl. So that's all gone in. Yummo. Now, I'm just going to tap it, but I will tap it on a tea towel, just so it's evenly spread in my little dish. And I'm using frozen raspberries today. I keep them whole, and all I do is I just dot them through. And what will happen is, as this bakes, the batter will sort of raise up around the raspberries. And it's also really handy for when you're portioning it, because you can go between the raspberries to slice it, and it's simple. So pop all those in. Debbie, what maybe you can share with me, what dishes do you make at Easter? What's a treat for you when you're celebrating Easter? Okay, so we've got this in, they're all popping in, and I tend to do them so they're facing up. A few extra, but that's fine. And at this stage, what you can do is you can add a bit more chocolate if you want. You can just grab a clean tea towel. Not necessary, but hey, it is Easter after all, so we might not have enough chocolate. So let's pop that aside for a second. And all I do is grab a couple of squares and chop it up. And we can just simply sprinkle that over. And what will happen is, as that cooks, you're going to get these gooey little pockets of dark chocolate in. Now you could replace this with milk chocolate if you wanted to, white chocolate if you wanted to, though, you know, I don't really class white chocolate as white chocolate, it is only sugar. And that, my friends, is our brownie done. Very simple. And that is going into the oven, 175 degrees. I let it cook for about 25 minutes and then I go and check it. What you're wanting to achieve is, you'll notice the edges of the cake will have pulled away slightly from that baking paper. If you put a skewer in, you still want it to be a little bit gooey in the middle. You don't want it if it's firm, nothing coming on the skewer when it comes out, you've gone a little bit too far. So let's pop that straight into our preheated oven. 25 minutes later, that is going to be ready to enjoy and share some chocolatey, gooey goodness with all your family and friends for Easter. And I'm going to show you what it made, because it would be rude not to do a taste test. I'm not having you sitting around here for 25 minutes waiting for that to happen. And this is some that I prepared earlier. So we've got this beautiful brownie. If you can keep it in the fridge, you can freeze it. It's quite a nice little treat just to make even half that recipe, pop it in the freezer, and then just chop it into little cubes as a little chocolatey treat now and then. I've got a little bit of coconut yogurt on there, and can you see that? It's still just a little bit, you can see that fudginess of it, and it is divine. We've got a little bit of raspberry there. Oh my goodness, guys. I've thought for years it's the best brownie in the world. I think some people on my page would agree. I think that we've shared the recipe. You will find the recipe in the box below. If you try it, let me know what you think. And I'll be here next week. I think next week we're going to try and make a couple of non-alcoholic cocktails for Easter. So we'll stay away from the chocolate and we'll make something different next week. I hope you have a great day. I might go and sit in the sun with a cup of tea and enjoy the rest of this. So have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next week. Ciao for now.